What's up, boys and girls? My name is Cowwy and welcome back to the Carrot Club. In this video, we'll be doing something different. Instead of building on island, which you typically normally see me do, we'll be taking a crash course on how to use Roblox Studio to build parts of a game. I'm going to go through the basics of Roblox Studio in this video, like movement controls, building tools. We'll talk a little bit about how Roblox system works, and finally just a little tiny bit of scripting so you guys get an idea what Roblox Studio can do and what you can expect in future videos. So with that, let's get right into it. The first thing you need is Roblox Studio, which can be downloaded with this link here. The link is also in the description if you want the easiest route. When you're on the home page, look for this Start Creating button here and click on it and follow the instructions. For this to work, you need to have a computer or a laptop running Windows or Mac. Once you have Roblox Studio installed, you should have a blue Roblox icon sitting around. Double click that and you're ready to go. The first thing you see when you open Roblox Studio is the project selection page. On this screen, you're given a few choices on the left-hand side of the screen. You got New, My Game, Recent, and Archive. If you click on New, this will mean to start a new project and a huge selection of projects to choose from. Most of them are pre-built games for you to use as examples, categorized by themes and gameplay. We won't be using any of the template because we want to know how to build a game from bottom up. So the only new projects we're interested in is base plate, and that's it. Before we get started on a new project, let's go over what the other options are. My Game is where you'll find your saved projects that you have been working on. If you just started with Roblox Studio, you won't have anything in here. To know what each option up here does, you'll need to learn a little bit more about the Roblox ecosystem, which we'll talk more about in later videos. Recent are projects that you recently opened and worked on. Archive is basically a project storage for files that you don't really work on anymore. Anything that is marked Archive, like these projects here, you won't be able to open it. A very important thing to know about Roblox, which confused me a lot when I first started, is that you cannot delete stuff, even if you are the owners of the content. Once it is created and saved, it is there forever. For example, I have a lot of saved projects here. If I want to delete them, I cannot just delete them. There is no option for deleting a project. Once it is inside the Roblox system, it is there for good. The only way for you to simulate a delete is to mark it as archives. So if you're thinking about creating a lot of projects because you think you can just delete them, that's not going to work. Now that you know about this, let's create our own project by selecting New and Base Plate. And here you are, your very first Roblox game project. Everything you want to do and everything you want to make is done inside here. Every game that you have been playing so far on Roblox used to look like this. No fancy buildings, no codes, no nothing, just a gray floor. To start building a game, you'll need to learn some basic commands for navigating around first. The screen right in front of you with the gray floor is called a viewport. Whatever it is that you see in here, that is what your game currently looks like. To move around, you use the WASD key just as if you would in a Roblox game. The only difference is the controls allow you to move anywhere as if you are flying. Pressing E will allow you to ascend, and pressing Q will allow you to descend. Holding the right mouse button on the viewport, you'll be able to look around. Middle scroll button, you'll be able to zoom in and out. On the upper left hand corner, you'll see the word base plate. This is called a tab and it shows you what you're currently working on. Right now you don't have anything else in the game, so all you will see is base plate. If I insert something like a script, you can see that now I have a new tab open called a script, and I can type anything in here and I can switch between base plate and script depending on what you're currently working on. When your project gets a lot bigger, you'll have a lot of tabs open. So to close them, you want to middle click on them or press the X button right here. Now you don't want to press the X button right here because that will close out the projects and it will ask you to save the projects before you close it. When it comes to moving around and knowing what the viewport does, this is all you need to know for now. So moving forward, on the top here, we have the toolbar just like any other application. We'll start from the left side on the File tab right here. This tab should be quite obvious for everyone because every application has this. This is where you'll create new projects, open a project, save a project setting, information about your studio, versions, stuff like that. One thing I want to point out is that Roblox gives you two options to save your project. One is to save as files, which is a physical copy stored onto your own computer, almost like a backup copies of the game. The second way is to save to Roblox, which saves your project onto the Roblox cloud system, which by default you should be doing if you intend to publish your game for everyone to play. The game needs to be on the cloud system. Next over is the Home tab. This is where you will find a lot of basic tools for building your game. You'll find yourself inside this tab a lot. So the first category here, we got the clipboard. These are all the commands that you can use to copy and paste game components around. You'll get plenty of chances to use these tools throughout the project, so you don't have to worry about it too much right now. The tools category, these are commands used to manipulate objects in your project. You'll use all of these very frequently when you are building. I'm going to create a part into the project just to show you guys how each of these tools works. The first tool is the select tool, which is a cursor that allows you to select an object freely and move them around. All I did is click and drag and the part will move around where you want them to go. The next tool is the move tool. When this is active, the part that you're moving will have these arrows on them called a gizmo. This allows you to move the parts in a specific direction so you can position them precisely where you want them to be. So if I want to move the parts around to form a brick wall, I can do that. All I need to do is press Ctrl D to duplicate this part, and now I can form a brick wall like this. The next tool that we're going to be using is the scale tool. Once I activate that, you can see that the gizmo have now turned to these colorful balls, which is a visual cue telling you that you are now using scale. If I pull on the green gizmo on the top of the part, you can see that the part is now growing taller. If I pull on the red gizmo on the right here, the part is now getting wider. And similarly, if I pull on the blue, the part would now becomes a cube. So now I have a cube. The rotate icon changes the cursor to this circular gizmo, which allows you to rotate a part or turn it so that it will face a different direction. Each ring will represent a different axis, so you can rotate them in many different axes depending on where you want them to go. The next tool that we'll be talking about is the collision, which is a on and off button that prevents parts from going through each other. We're going to move this part out of the way because we won't be needing them anymore and focus our attention on these two blocks right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the left block right here, right through the next block right here. Because there is no collision, I can just move through it as if the block doesn't even exist. But if I were to turn this on, you can see that if I were to move it, I'm now stopped right here. I cannot move it any further. If I would try to force it right through, I'll just end up on the other side of the brick. The next category is the terrain editor. As the name suggests, it is used to create terrain for your game. If you don't know what a terrain is, this is what a terrain looks like. I'm going to create something really small right here just to show you guys what a terrain looks like. So I'm going to put a 100 by 100 by 100 and I'm just going to hit generate. So you can see that a terrain just suddenly appeared right on the game space that I'm working on right now. You probably have seen this already, especially if you have been playing Roblox Island. This is what the hub or the town is made of. If you have a game that needs outdoor environment, this tool will quickly generate a very large portion of land for you very quickly. Then you can simply mold the landscape to shape and size you want. We won't be covering this topic in this video. If you want a video on that, put a suggestion in the comments below and I'll see what I can do about it. The insert category gives you the ability to insert game components in your game. The toolbox option opens up a new window on the left hand side of the studio. As you can see, there are a lot of models being displayed here. These models are created by other Roblox content creator or Roblox themselves, and they are available for you to use if you want to. Now, although I encourage you to not use them because some stuff here have viruses that will ruin your game, so be careful of what you use from this toolbox. To insert something into your game, you simply find something you want, then you simply click on it and it will appear on your viewport. Now there are many options up here that we're not going to get into in this video, so for now just know that you can find a model here and then put it into your game like this little piggy here. The next option is parts, which you have seen already because the cubes and the bricks that I used earlier right here are created using parts. Now parts is your best friend in Roblox Studio because majority of the stuff you see in game are built using parts, like this real barrel here. Now I have 4 parts right here sitting on the ground. These are the 4 parts that you can create using the parts option up here, which is blocks, sphere, wedges, and cylinder. Depending on what you want to make using these 4 basic blocks, you can create a lot of interesting models with it. And when you're starting out, try to use parts to construct your models, at least the basic ones, just to get used to building inside of Studio. There are other options to create game models like Blender, which we won't get into because that requires you to use another software and it's going to be very confusing to learn Studio and Blender at the same time. Just to show you guys what the parts can do when put together, this wheelbarrow are constructed using multiple parts. So if you look at the right hand side here where the wheelbarrows are, you can see that I have a lot of many different parts to construct this wheelbarrow. Next, we got the UI components, which is responsible for building graphical interfaces like a preloader, experience bar, health bar, dialog box, inventory, stuff like that. UI can get very complex, so for now, just know that you have the option here to create customized interfaces. The edit category gives you some basic tools that allows you to change how parts will look and how they are organized. So if I want the sphere to look like wood, I can change the material by selecting wood. And I can also change the color to brown. I can also group them together and move them around as if it is one part. The wheelbarrow is inside a group right now, that's why I can move it as if it is one object. Now if I want to ungroup them, all I have to do is ungroup, and then I can move individual parts out, destroying the wheelbarrows like this. Now you can see what each individual part does and how it's actually constructed. The last option is anchor. This is a very important button that you will use a lot. What it does is it makes a part suspend in midair and forces them to stay in one spot. Now right now it does nothing because inside Studio, while editing the game, everything looks like they are suspended in midair. If I turn it on, for this sphere right here, you'll notice that it did nothing. That's because anchor only is effective when the game is running. So I'm going to quickly run the game to show you the difference between an anchor part and a non-anchor part. As you can see, the orange sphere gets stuck in midair while all the other parts fall straight to the ground. The test category is very straightforward. When you press play, Roblox Studio will run the game so you can test what you have built so far. And when you're done, you can hit stop and you'll be right back into the studio and continue your editing. The next tab is the model tab. This is now getting into more intermediate topic. I'm just going to go over them very briefly so at least you guys know what they are. Snap to Grid category is used to precisely move your parts around the studio. Without any of those options on, you can see that I can rotate my parts freely and smoothly. I can also move it around the same way. But what if I want to move it or rotate it precisely? I can turn on the Snap to Rotate option and say 45 degree. Now every time I try to rotate my part, it will only rotate every 45 degrees and this applies to every direction. If I turn on Snap to Stud and set it to 2, this means that every time I move a part, it will move 2 studs worth of distance, no more and no less. A stud is a measurement used in Roblox, so if I were to zoom in very close to the base plate, it looks like a steel plate with little studs sticking out. So that's what a stud looks like. The solid modeling category gives you the powers to turn a part into a complex model. For example, the wheelbarrow that I exploded, the wooden wheels here is made using solid modeling by negating parts. If that confused you already, don't worry about it. We're not going to go over exactly what each option does. That's for another build video. Constraints are used for building vehicles, doors, engines, anything that requires physics. You'll do it under constraints. I just created a very quick examples of what constraints can do. You can build some form of swings with this. Gameplay deals with special effects like setting my wheelbarrows on fire. Advanced is where you add scripts to the game, making your model do things that you cannot do by modeling alone. For example, like creating a lot of rotational platforms for an obby game. This is done using scripts because parts by itself does nothing until you tell it what to do. So to do that, you'll need to learn some scripting. The View tab is where you'll find all of the available window. Not every one of them is important and useful to you. The most important window for you at the moment is the Explorer, which is this portion of the studio on the right hand side. You will use this window 100% of the time because this window shows you every component in the project, from modeling to animation to scripting. If you somehow lost this window, you can find it under the View tab and then select Explorer. The only thing you need to know for now is Workspace. Workspace means everything you see inside of the viewport. It also has everything that you don't see. You can add a part inside of the workspace by right-clicking on the workspace, then insert part, and the part will appear inside of the viewport. You can also delete the part by selecting it and pressing delete. Anything below Workspace we won't get into because they require some knowledge about the technical side of Roblox Studio, like scripting, animation, server, stuff like that. Then you got the property window, which is this portion right here. Let me drag this out so you guys can see it better. You will use this very frequently as well because it shows you the details for your game component that you normally don't see. For example, if I add a part into Workspace, it doesn't look very interesting looking like a brick. However, if I select it and look at the properties, we can see that this part has a color. It has a material, and it even has a name. Not only that, if I want to make adjustment to this part, I can change it here in the property section. I can resize it here under size, and the part will reflect on what I have entered here within the property. The last thing that I want to touch up on is scripting. Scripting, it is not like modeling or building a world with parts. The stuff that goes inside scripting you won't see in the viewport, because script controls how a player interacts with the game. It tells the game what a player can do and what a player cannot do. For example, I have a flamethrower here with a script to spit out fire. Anytime I walk towards it, it will kill me instantly. This is the kind of stuff you make using scripts. If you don't understand what I wrote in the script, don't worry about it. There will be plenty more videos in the future explaining how all this works. For now, just know that script controls how a player interacts with the game and creates things that you normally don't model. And that's about it for this basic crash course on how to use Roblox Studio. We've covered the basics of navigation, we talked about saving projects, we have gone over a lot of building tools. Finally, you get to see what a script can do. I hope that I cover enough stuff here for you to start playing around with Roblox Studio. This is a very big topic, much bigger than my build tutorials. So if you don't get it now, you'll start to get it in a few months when you see more examples in later videos. So thank you boys and girls for watching, and I'll see you in the next video in-game or at the Carrot Club. Take care everybody.